Hello, hello, hello. Welcome into this space, into the space where we are. And welcome. It always sounds a little funny when I say it, but there's this way that I always want to say, like, welcome to the moment that you're actually in. Welcome to the present moment. Sounds very new agey. But I really, the way that we have to connect at this time in the world where there's a certain virtual quality, and some of you may be all the way across the world from where I am on the west coast of Northern California, that I believe there's really important value in coming into the space in which we share. And I believe that really is a space in which we share, even if you may be on the East Coast of the United States and I'm on the West Coast and someone else is in the South or the Midwest or Europe or Australia, Japan, Hong Kong. I don't think I've ever had anyone, well, at least they've never said so, from Iceland. That would be super fun. So let me know, give me a little wave, give me a hello so that I can see that you're there. Let me know where you are joining from so we can get a sense of what is this shared space that we're in, who is here, and where are we all pulling from to create this shared space that we're in right now. I've been really sitting with the phrase relationship by design. I've been sitting with it for a long time. And then as I have put forward the program, Relationship by Design Fundamentals, there's this funny little, I don't know if this happens in anybody else's like mind being when they see Relationship by Design Fundamentals. But I have had this little twinge, like there's something about the naming of it that feels true. It comes actually from processes that I created and led over many, many years in my in Authentic World, the Authentic Relating community. And that really came from this space of facilitating people in creating their co-creating their relationships together. So it lands, I think it's true, but I've had this little hook occasionally that happens that says like, relationship by design, like you can't design your relationships. Like I don't get to say, it's not up to me who wants to be in relationship with me or how they act. I don't get to tell everybody in relationship with me how they act. Wouldn't it be nice if, we could just say like, and you do this and you do this? I mean, I think many of us actually think that, but if we really got down to it, we wouldn't really want that, right? Because we want to be in relationship with real people such as they are. And I'll get to that in just a moment, actually, in terms of what are these fundamentals? What are these fundamentals? So today, I was percolating again on this idea of what does it mean to create a relationship by design? What does that mean? And I was sitting first with that piece of, doesn't mean I get exactly what I want all the time, exactly the way I want it, exactly when I want it, exactly how I think I want it. But there is a quality, and even this, I could go down a whole rabbit hole around this, and it's a nuanced topic. But I do think that there's something around, number one, that there's a way that a relationship by design must include all participants. And that sounds obvious when we say it, but one of the things that happens, that I see anyway, happens for people is that they unconsciously sort of carve themselves out of the relationship. And they just see how other people behave, act, what they seem to be doing, what I imagine they want over there. I'm like, well, I guess that's the relationship that's available, or that's just how relationships go. And again, this is relationship, intimate relationship, romantic, sexual, dating, as well as family, friends, coworkers, colleagues, random people on the street, that there's an element that, again, of course, the depth, the subtlety, the nuance, the length, right? These are different in different relationship configurations and with different people. But even just those little interactions that we have, or the more surface interactions that we might have over time, but that are in a certain format, in terms of the person at the coffee shop, or the person at the mail at the post office, or the other people that I meet, day in and day out, walking their dogs as I walk my dog along the bike path, or, that there still is this way that we actually, I think that when we carve ourselves out of it, oh, I'm only allowed to act like this, or they only want this, or, well, this is just how relationships go if we're only going to see each other on the bike path, or this is what's acceptable to say, or how it's acceptable to be or do, or that we carve ourselves out of the dynamic. And so relationship by design inherently must include all people involved, and that includes yourself. And it also includes the other person actually as they are, not either how we think they are. So these are like stories we've built up about them over time, positive or negative, how we think they should be, their potential, which doesn't mean we can't see that and love that and, all this, but that like, oh, I'm, creating a relationship with somebody's potential. But that we actually be in dynamic relationship with ourselves, in our, such as we are, and with other people, truly how they are. And that while it's true that every person in the dynamic must be included, there is, I believe, also this piece that is essential in relationship by design, which is that I must take full responsibility for the way that the relationships in my life go. Another way to say that is that I actually place myself at the center. It doesn't mean everyone revolves around me. It's not like I'm like the center of the universe, or I'm the center of the relationships, but I actually have to place myself at the center of the creation of the relationships around me, and go like, oh, in some way, so many of these words are words that I'm not fans of, or phrases that I'm not really a fan of, but to actually own the power that I have in both the creation of, the continuation of, and how the relational dynamics around me go. So often, again, there's the kind of like shrinking in terms of how we cut ourselves out of relational dynamics, like our own needs, our own wants, our own visions. And then there's sort of the evading responsibility quality of like, I don't have that much power, right? Abdicating our power in relationships, rather than going like, actually, I have an enormous amount of power in terms of how the relationships in my life go. And again, I'll refer back to what I said at the beginning, which is that power does not include that I get to tell everyone around me, how to be, how to act, what to say, what to do. Doesn't mean I get exactly what I want all the time. But this is actually one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about this subject is, I don't get everything I want all the time, exactly the way I want it, and when I want it, how I want it, like all of these things. And I made that joke before about like, wouldn't it be nice if, actually, I think I'm happier because of that. And part of my power part of what it actually means to claim both my responsibility and my power within my relational dynamics is that my happiness is actually not dependent on everyone else doing, being, saying, acting how I think they should all the time, both in their own lives or in relation to me. My happiness in these relational dynamics is not dependent on me getting exactly what I want all the time. And that's both part of my responsibility and part of my power. And it's part of what allows me to stay in the creative process of, yeah, but how do I want them to go? How do I actually want these relationships in my life, these relational dynamics, like all the variations on this, how do I want this to go? And the capacity to be in collaboration with other people is partly dependent on that I don't make my own happiness and well-being and satisfaction in life dependent on getting what I want exactly the way I think I want it, when I want it, in every moment. So the other thing I want to say, that when I was percolating on this, I think I'm kind of beating a dead horse, but when I was percolating on this earlier today, the way I was talking about it is like I place myself kind of at the center of my life in this way, that I actually, like, I really do have power and responsibility in this respect. And that this is distinct from being at the center of the universe or the center of the world or like the center of everybody else's world. And I think that's an important distinction because, number one, many of us know that we're not the center of the universe, and therefore we abdicate the responsibility for putting ourselves, at the center in that way of like, no, like how, like I want to be part of how this goes. Or there is this conflation, like, yes, I actually do have this responsibility and power, and I am at the center of how these things go. Therefore, I am actually the center of the universe. And, that's magical thinking and spiritual bypassing and denial of reality. So, let's not do that either. I hope somebody's laughing with me and not at me. So all of these things I've been talking about, like this way of actually stepping into the seat of both power and responsibility, absolutely in our lives, like that's kind of a whole other conversation, although they're inextricably related, right? Stepping into the seat of power and responsibility in our lives and in our relationships and our relational dynamics, they go hand in hand. So, I'm teaching this class, Relationship by Design Fundamentals. The fact is, like, ultimately doing this process will put you in that seat of power and responsibility in your relationships, your relational dynamics, and in your life. So they can't help but ripple out. It can't help but ripple out and impact all these other areas of your life. And especially because in this program in particular, we're really looking at all the different relational dynamics. And it's so easy to get kind of like myopically focused on only our intimate relationship or lack thereof, or only our romantic or sexual relationship or only our primary partner. And truly, this capacity exists in all our relational dynamics. And I think it's so important, not only that we sort of remove so much emphasis, obligation, and weight on this romantic, sexual, intimate relationship area, but that we, and that just frees up space. And it also allows for seeing how these relational dynamics actually work in all these different areas. Like, oh, this is how, if I got to say how it went in this relational dynamic over here with this friend or this colleague or this part of my family, or, that it would free up all this energy to create so much more of what we want in so many other areas of our life. So these are lifelong practices, and they're lifelong because they're deep and profound, and and we're constantly finding new layers of like, oh, I thought I was like totally doing it, but I just found this whole other layer. And in a way, I shared that actually. It's part of it's part of kind of like the About Me section on the Relationship by Design website, which I'll share in the comments when I'm done here. But I share, just this little snippet of the story of me and my ex-husband. And we were, to the best of our ability in our kind of early to mid 20s and right into like right up to our early 30s, to the best of our ability, we were living Relationship by Design. And it wasn't even until we went through our own unraveling process. I don't want to speak for him. I guess I'll just speak for me. It wasn't until I went through that unraveling process that I saw the ways in which I was still trying to fit myself into some sort of mold that made sense in the world such as I knew it, in the culture such as I knew it, in our relationship like such as I knew it. There were just ways that I still even couldn't see beyond that box. And I think that's true for all of us. Like there's ways in which we will unpack this forever. And then the other way is, and this is one of the key foundational pieces that I teach in this program, is curiosity, which is both like blah, 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 blah. There's so much I want to say about these. Like my mind is going in 10 different directions and I'm getting tongue-tied. It's both about the way that I hold relationship and relational dynamics in and of themselves, and then this foundational piece of curiosity, which is for us to create a relationship by design, for this to be intentional, for this to be conscious, for this to be chosen. We actually have to be in relationship with each other, present time, moment to moment, and day to day, and week to week, and year to year. And that requires that we allow ourselves to change, and that we allow the other person or people or dynamics to change as well, to evolve, to grow, to learn, and that we allow ourselves to learn new things about ourselves, and we allow ourselves to learn new things about the other person or people or community or system that we're engaging with. And that makes it also a lifelong practice. And guess what I want to say about that is rather than that being like, oh my God, I have to do this for the rest of my life. Like, won't there ever be a time when it's just, easy or set or done? I would say two things. I would say three, actually. One is no, there won't. Number two is the more that we do this, the easier it gets, so that it doesn't become so weighty or so cumbersome or so much work to engage in this way. It's just like, oh, this is just how I greet myself. This is how I greet my lover. This is how I greet my coworkers. This is how I greet my friends, from this place, so that it really doesn't take that much effort. And the third is, actually, I believe that this is part of what makes life so fun. And it's more like, oh my God, I get to unwrap this present forever. And every time I unwrap it, there's actually a gift that then becomes something I can unwrap and find a whole nother gift. Like forever, I get to just keep unwrapping more and more and more gifts. That's what relationship by design allows for. And that's what approaching a relationship with ourselves and our relationships with other people with endless and ongoing curiosity allows for. Like, whoa. Not only, I'm just going to jump ahead. I wasn't going to get to curiosity. It's the third foundation. So I was going to speak to that in just a moment. But totally just lost my thread there. But it's so much what it's not only this place of that people are growing and changing. And so there are always new things to learn and know and experience about ourselves and about other human beings and about the more than human realm. I mean, it's just endless. It's truly endless. I love, in this kind of more than human realm, I'll just say, I loved when I heard the story about Mary Oliver, the poet, talking about how she would take the same walks. She had just a few walks that she would take, but she would go every single day. And the way she talked, she was like, I see something new every single day. And sometimes it's because, oh, there's a new bird here, or a new something grew, or a new this. And then also but she would see something new even in the same things. That there was a way that she would see the curve of the path differently, or the trunk of this tree, she would see a new part of it. And I felt so, especially in that moment when I came across that story, I was immersed in some communities that had a lot of love of new experiences and traveling, and really enamored of that experience. And I was like, I don't know, I really just want to eat at the same restaurant and live in the same place and go on the same walks every single day. And when I read that story about Mary Oliver, I was like, yes, that is why, because I'm already not overwhelmed, I can't stand it, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed and dissociative about it, but I'm awash in the newness that I see in being even in the same place, of walking out on my front porch every morning and seeing what I see, of meeting the same people over and over, and and like how they're arising new before my eyes. And I had this experience actually with my ex-husband doing a process that we used to teach in our authentic relating events. We very creatively called the process curiosity, the curiosity game. And the basic tenet of this game was that you would be paired up with another person. One person would ask questions and one person would answer them. And the person asking the questions, basically the invitation was they could ask any question they wanted as long as they were genuinely curious about the response with this person in this moment. And the person answering could answer in a way that was authentic for them, which was all the way from, just bleh, the whole 9 yards and a bag of chips, all the way to, I don't feel comfortable answering that question, right? That can also be an authentic response, everything in between. And somebody else in our authentic relating team was leading the exercise one night. And so my ex-husband and I, we were just dating we were boyfriend, girlfriend at the time. We got paired up. And I remember it was like a split second where I was like, I don't know, should we be paired up? Like, I think we should, like, there was like this split second of what are we going to learn about each other? And then I remember, I think I was the question asker, and I turned towards him and I was just struck by, like, I could never know this person completely. And I dove into curiosity, and I just remember both of us in tears during this process. Like we were weeping in a room full, probably like 50 other people, most of them strangers that we didn't know. We were just weeping, and we were like aware of just how we could never fully know each other. And that was really this pivotal moment of not only when you're just meeting someone and can you bring your full self, but like that we have this opportunity available to us for the rest of our lives. And so there's lots of ways to bring that in, but it's why curiosity is this key tenet, this foundational piece of relationship by design fundamentals. And the way this links back, as I was starting to say, is that these are lifelong practices. And this is like my plug for lifelong practices. Like, no, they're great. Like having something as a lifelong practice is actually a gift, not a weight. And what I want to say about them being lifelong practices is that there are these foundational pieces. And that's why I wanted to put together relationship by design fundamentals. Is like, okay, so, we could learn about, like, I can lead a program that's your entire life, or, again, it could be 6 months, it could be 12 months, like we could dive so deep into this. And there are these really foundational pieces that I know without a shadow of a doubt that if you take them on as practices will change your life. And you don't have to pay me thousands of dollars and work with me for years and years and years to take on these foundational practices. So like, let's dive in for a month and really, really step into these foundational practices. So curiosity is a big one. And it's one of the really, really key ones. The other three that I just want to name here are authenticity. And again, on the registration page, one of the things I say is like, it's such a catchphrase. It's sort of an overused word and an under-practiced skill. And in relationship by design fundamentals, we're going to approach authenticity, from myriad angles, but from two perspectives in particular. And one is about this place of where we tend to withhold parts of ourselves, either because we're afraid they're unlovable, they're not appropriate, these people don't want it, that person doesn't want it. Like there's these parts, again, I might say like, well, I can't bring that in this part of my life, or these people don't want to have this kind of like they don't want my authentic self. They only want the parts of me that have it all together, or, these only want the parts that are like pretty and nice, to like happy and positive, and this person only wants to see these parts of me, and where we tend to box off and withhold and limit the parts that we share, reveal, express, and experience with the people in our lives. And then the other part we're going to look at, and so we'll look at that really individually, uniquely in terms of like for you, what are the parts you're withholding, where and why. And then the other is this part we used to say a lot, that there's a big difference between hide nothing, or right, withhold nothing, and share everything. And one of the ways that I see this show up is people conflating their habit truth, like what I would call quote unquote like a habit truth, with like like your deeper truth, or your deeper authentic self. And so if I feel, I have a surface habit truth of, when you do this particular thing, I feel irritated. Well, if I'm going to be authentic, I have to tell you how irritated I am. And that's authentic. And I'm certainly not positing, we'll dive really, really deeply into this in Relationship by Design Fundamentals. So I'm not positing that we always withhold, again, these pieces. That's the first part of it. But we're going to actually tease apart the difference between your habit truth, or your habit authenticity, the parts of you that you think are authentic, and the parts of you down deep that you're actually committed to, and especially also the parts that don't get airtime, right? Like this part actually gets a lot of airtime because I think it's my authentic self. It's my shame. It's my irritation. It's my control freak. It's my, what's the word I'm looking for? My daughter said it recently. She started tripping a lot, and she's like, "I'm really clumsy. Like it's my clumsy self. This is like authentic, and I have to show these parts, but I don't share these other parts that are actually deeply, deeply authentic." So authenticity, and what that allows, right? In terms of, we're talking about relationship by design, we're not allowing people to be in relationship with us if we're not willing to bring the fullness of our authentic self to them. Again, it sounds sort of obvious, but it's like I said, it's like an overused word and an underpracticed skill. So we're going to work really deeply with that. And then the second piece is around, what do you want? And again, we're going to come at this from a couple different angles, but some of the big ways that we're going to look at it are really untangling what we think is available out there from how we relate to those relationships. So often we've already limited what we think is available, like by what we think is on the menu with that person, in that organization, in that place, in this type of relationship. Like, well, if we want to have, kids, we have to get married. Or if I want to have mind-blowing sex every day, I have to be polyamorous. Or if I want to, we do these little negotiations around what we think is available, what's on the menu. And then we're like, well, there's, a salad and a burger and a baked potato. And out of those three options, the burger is the one that fits best. And so, that's my authentic choice. But we've only made a choice over what we think is on the what we think is on the menu, rather than really diving in and going like, gosh, like if I could have this exactly the way I want it, what do I even want? So that's one of the big ways. And then the other way, or just the other angle, I would say, that really goes along with this, is that we're often just not honest with ourselves. And often, again, that comes from, first of all, looking at a menu, and also there's a lot of fear around whether we can have it or not. So if we think I can't have it, so many people just won't even tell themselves that they want it. So we're going to work a lot around this place, like, what do you want? But like, first, really just tell the truth to yourself. And then we can look at like, how do we actually be in negotiation and collaboration with other people from an authentic place, and revealing like, this is how I want it. This is what I like. This is what I love. Like, what do you like? How do you want to have a friendship? What kind of dynamic do you want here? And when we're more willing to be honest about what we want, there's a lot more freedom and space and air to hear what other people want. It doesn't become so heavy. And then I already kind of beat a dead horse about curiosity, but it is a super, super, super important piece. So curiosity. And then the last one is generosity. And I want to distinguish, I think often generosity gets mapped over, conflated with, and misunderstood as like tit for tat, um, manipulation, over-giving, making excuses for people's behavior, putting up with things, overriding our own desires. Like if we're being generous, that just means we're just giving, 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 giving. However, I have found that in pretty much all relationships, and definitely if we're in the realm of relationship by design, if we just get really myopically focused on ourselves and whether, like, am I getting what I want? Am I getting my needs met? That, and it's not that, like, obviously the other ones, I talk about this so much, like, of course our needs are valid and we have to include ourselves. It's more the myopic focus on ourselves. It ends up limiting the capacity for the relationships in our lives. And the more that we cultivate the gesture, the practice, the devotion to generosity as an energetic, the more our relationships flourish and thrive, and the more freedom there is, again, to be in this kind of collaborative negotiation that's not like, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. Well, I'm going to subtly over here, like, sort of be generous about this with the underlying assumption that then you'll show up for me in this way. I'm going to give up this need over here, and that means that you will give up this need over here, or this. But we actually can cultivate the ground of generosity in our relationships, so that's what all of our relationships are built on. So that's the fourth foundation that we're going to look at. And I'm super, super excited because I am super, super excited about all of this content. And in fact, in a way, as I come to the end of this here, so, now is a great time if there are any questions or comments or anything you want to bring into the space around this, please do it now. There's a little bit of a lag on FaceTime, and I'm going to wrap up. But it's so helpful for me, actually, when I start talking about these things. Sometimes I can get kind of separate, there's like from the thing itself, and I'm like, oh no, this is so important. These are things that I want every human to have the access to, the capacity and facility with. I want you to have these in your own life. I want you to have them in your relationships, because they make life better. So I'm really, really excited to dive in with the people who are in Relationship by Design Fundamentals, and not only look at these foundations and these cornerstones in the sense of like the teachings themselves and how they are, but to really look at them and how they relate to the actual lived unique experiences and lives of the people in this program. So I've created Relationship by Design Fundamentals specifically in a way where there are the teaching pieces and the practices to take forward, but there is time on every single call for in the moment live coaching where I can work with the people in that program really on their specific life and the relationships they want to focus on, so that we're not just like, well, in the abstract, how do we be curious with everybody in our lives? But, someone can come in and say, like, this is what's happening with my life partner. This is what happened with my lover the other day. This is what's coming up. This is like the place where I get really blocked in curiosity with my mother or my children, and look at these pieces and go, like, let's unpack them and let's learn from looking at the specificity of our lives. So I am super, super, super excited about that. And I'll put the link in the comments for any of you who are interested. Thank you for being here with me. And I'm sending you so much love. Ciao.